Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Magicians. Quite a few things to kind of break down about this episode. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with the Quentin situation. The fact is, Quentin is dealing with, the aftermath of his dad dying. I think this is like the first time we've ever seen his mom in the show. I mean, even finding out that his parents are divorced, because I guess she didn't really know too much about him since they separated, or maybe he just kept a lot to himself. But it's like no one showed up to Quentin's dad's funeral, no friends or anything like that. Did he have friends? Was he dating? She's like, I don't know. So. And it's actually kind of interesting to kind of find out the kind of relationship Quentin has with his mom. It's a little bit complicated because basically his mom kind of looks at him as kind of a bit of a screw up. It's like ever since he was little, he broke like an ashtray or something, and she's always just looked at him and like, you're just going to break things. Because even when she left him with all the stuff from his dad, to be like, if you want to deal with this stuff, you got to like tomorrow to deal with it. I'm giving it away or whatever. The fact of the matter is, it's like, don't break anything. It's like, talking down to him like that. And for him, even the monster, inside of Elliot shows up, which is interesting, I guess, because it was like, I was bored, didn't really have anything else to do. Like, it is interesting. I wonder what it is about Quentin. I guess Quentin immediately caught its attention, but like, it finds Quentin so fascinating. Like, in all this time, I mean, to be fair, it seemed like it almost kind of latched a little bit onto Margot, but it always goes back to Quentin. I wonder why. Like, I guess there's just something about Quentin that it likes, that it kind of feeds off of, maybe, and some, not necessarily like directly feeds off, I mean more like metaphorically. Maybe it feels like it's more akin to Quentin. I mean, it kind of seemed like it was kind of going like, oh, I'm kind of akin to Margot last episode. But nevertheless, in this situation, it's almost watching the human experience, because it's like, wait, you're up here sad, but rather than killing things, wait, you're not killing things even though you're sad. He's like, that's kind of my way of dealing with things, but that's not yours. And Quentin's like, that's not how humans do things. I mean, not now at the very least. But the fact is that it's almost watching him being like, oh, this could be interesting. And it treats it like a game. Like, it's like, oh, this would be kind of an interesting game. Like, to see, maybe I can kind of, learn from it. He's like, it's kind of weird, because I'm going to be sitting here watching you think about your dead dad. It's like, it's kind of like it can't comprehend it. But to be fair, it kind of stems from the thing of like, it doesn't remember anything. And even with what it got from Bacchus, it doesn't feel anything from it. I mean, it seems like it's fiddling with it, but it's like it was glowing before, but now it looks like whatever was in it has dimmed away. I guess it doesn't have access to it. Maybe it's that situation of you need all the pieces to come together before they can be used or something like that. Alone, they don't mean that. It's not like, oh, I can take it, got it back, and one piece at a time. It's like probably you need everything all at once, potentially. I don't know. But eventually it gets bored and starts smashing stuff. And then Quentin kind of does the same thing too. So that was kind of interesting. Like, and you almost see the monster almost be, like I said, it's so weird because it seems like it's being a buddy to Quentin. It's like, oh, I'm trying to help you. I mean, to be fair, it's doing its own thing, because it's like, oh, this is so fun. It's actually kind of interesting. But even like Quentin's like, honestly, that was a little cathartic, to kind of deal with stuff like that. And so, because it's actually kind of sad in the long run, because like for Quentin, he blames himself, like, because he thinks on some level like his mom is right about him always breaking stuff, because he looks at his life and it's like Alice, his dad, that he just breaks everything around him. And it's kind of like a heavy thing to kind of be dealing with all the time, and I think this just, after losing his dad, it just kind of solidifies that even more. And I think that's what he's most afraid of, is kind of screwing everything up. So it's interesting, because the creature is like, oh, I want you to be more focused, make sure that you're back to being, 100%. So we're gonna go more God hunting. Also, Elliot's dead. I was like, wow. I was like, it's outright telling him that, because I guess it's like, hey, at the very least, if you know that, the fact is that you won't try and save, Elliot anymore. You won't waste your time. So you're more focused on what we need to do. It's like, hey, I felt his soul leave. It was quick. It was painless. It was a little pain, but not that much. So. And you see Quentin kind of staring off in the distance, because it's like, it's bad enough just losing his dad, and now he found out like, oh, Elliot's 100% gone. And even Margot was kind of like, later on, like, I'll tie into her story, talk about it in a second, but the fact is, even for her, it's like, no, like, I feel like, Elliot is gone. She felt it, she would have done anything to save him. Now, I was like, man, that's crazy. I was like, oh man, that sucks so much. But then, lo and behold, bam, no, it turns out the thing is lying. And I'm like, the thing is, like, why would it lie? And I guess it's because if they know that Elliot's still alive, they're going to keep trying to get in its way and try and save Elliot. But this way, it's like, hey, at the very least, you'll stay wrapped around it. Like, because I think in its mind, it's like, oh, if Quentin thinks that Elliot's still in there, maybe it's just going to keep trying to save him. Rather than being my friend, it's just going to continue trying to be Elliot's friend. But to be fair, that might backfire on it, because it's like, yeah, they're always going to hate you because you killed their friend, someone that was important to them. But we know that Elliot's still alive, though. Like, is that all the reason why it's doing that? I mean, maybe the fact of the matter is, when that thing is in somebody, like, the soul doesn't die. Like, the person's body it was originally in, which makes you wonder, what was her name again? The girl that was in the princess that was in the castle. Remember, like, after its original body inside the castle died, it went inside her body, but we don't know what went from there to it being inside of Elliot. So we don't know where she is. Maybe, like, after it left her body, it killed her, because it doesn't want anyone to know that, like, if it leaves your body, that the soul is still alive. Maybe it can't take any chances. It's like, oh, one is like, you're my old playmate, I don't need you anymore. Like, I'm curious, like, how that whole thing happened, because we still don't know what happened in that time frame before it went to Elliot. How it picked, I mean, it makes sense why it picked Elliot, because Elliot's the one that shot and tried to kill it. But also, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting why pick Elliot. I mean, besides just that, 'cause I feel like if that was the case, why not just kill Elliot? Why possess his body? There has to be something to that. Maybe it's because this thing is smarter than it lets on, that it chose one of them. It's like, well, this is my revenge for getting back at you, but also, like, I know a face would be something that would be easier for them to digest. It's like, oh, you're already friends with this person, so it'll be like, we're friends already. We know so much about each other, even though we don't, Maybe that's kind of what it's getting at. So another side of things is Julia dealing with the whole situation. It's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, her whole godhood thing is there. She's indestructible, yet she can't do magic. So her and Penny go to Fillory to meet up with Bacchus's main aides. The ladies, they're kind of like priestesses that kind of served gods. Turns out most of them ended up killing themselves. Luckily, they showed up in time to stop Shoshana from killing herself. Then there's that whole awkward situation between Penny and Julia. Penny having to do that whole thing of, like, rubbing oil on her body. He felt so weird about it. He's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. It's so interesting that he's like that, even though it's like you and Julia were a thing in timeline 23. But the fact is, I guess for him, it's like, but you're not that same Julia, and I know that, so it makes this a little weird. Because even she's kind of like, you've already kind of seen my body anyway, since you and 23 Julia were together and everything. But it's interesting because he's like, maybe you will have to do something so, something that doesn't have to hurt or whatever. And she's like, hurt. And he's like, well, I mean, for him, it's like, because the last thing that happened to Julia was the whole Reynard situation. There hasn't been anything of that, she hasn't had any intimacy with anyone, I don't think, subsequently. And so in his mind, it's like, he's trying to be careful, but she's like, I'm not a flower, I'm not glass, I'm not going to break. The fact is, people heal. And that's so interesting, because I think that is, I guess, maybe, taking Reynard's powers, and doing what she needed to do with it, becoming a goddess and everything, doing good with his powers did, help her grow and heal from the situation. And I thought that was kind of a nice way to handle that, I guess, I don't know. And because it does seem like because let's not forget, she was having nightmares about it for a while, but like those nightmares are gone now. Because, to be fair, she saw Reynard and just how essentially pathetic and little and weak he is, so. But, and then, like, there's the whole situation of him putting the oil on her and everything. And then he's like, I gotta do your front. She's like, are you asking, can you touch my boobs? He's like, yes, I'm asking, can I touch your boobs? And she's like, you can touch my boobs. And I'm like, it's like this intimate moment. It made me go, oh, whoa, like, I don't know why. It just kind of caught me off guard to a certain extent. To be fair, when I actually think about it, like, Julia hasn't been with anyone since her fiance since season 1. That was the last relationship she was in. Magic kind of found its way of kind of screwing up her love life in a certain regard. And like I said, sadly, with the whole Reynard situation. I forgot, was her and Richard were a thing, weren't they? I think so, now that I'm thinking about it. I can't remember. I feel like her and Richard were a thing before the whole Reynard situation happened. But nevertheless, but then, after everything was said and done, Shoshana looks and is like, okay, like, you are full-on goddess, you got a lot of power, but it's like, I don't have magic. But it's like, apparently, God's power and magic is a different thing. I guess because gods do have a power that I don't know, like comes from like something else. I mean, they're power, like, I mean, that's all mythical creatures, but I'm assuming gods are on like a whole other level. But it's like, so why can't she use magic then? Like, maybe she used up all the source of her magic. Maybe it's kind of like a thing of like, it's because maybe she's all coming from the perspective of a magician. That's kind of something she kind of had to shake. I remember she would always kind of try and cast spells with her hands, but it's like, as a god, she doesn't have to. Much like not elves, fairies didn't have to do magic. Only magicians have to do magic with their hands. So maybe it's a situation of, because she's still thinking like a magician and not a goddess, that not realizing that her power is already there. Like, or maybe gods kind of have different streams of power. Or maybe Julia is just an anomaly because we don't really know too much about where gods start off at in this continuity. Like, were gods of humans one day before they rose up to become gods, or were they born gods? Because like, what if in Julia's case, she became a god or goddess? So it's like, maybe her magic as a magician is gone, but maybe something broke there, but her powers as a goddess still reign. So she has like power outside of magic, something that's maybe uniquely her own, or maybe it's something all gods have. I have no idea. Kind of like how Reynard's power came to her in that regard, and that's why he's in the state that he's in, because that power was taken from him, that seed was taken from him and grown and nurtured inside of Julia. So maybe that's kind of like the same thing of like the magic's going, but that seed is nurturing power inside of her. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on from there. I do like that Shoshana is going to be basically following Julia around for now, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Ultimately, we also bring up the whole situation of, oh man, that also puts Penny and Julia in a very interesting situation. I'm curious what that's going to mean for Katie. Like, I mean, obviously, like, it seems like she's okay. Like, I brought that up before. Like, it seemed like she's not as caught up in the whole Penny 23 situation and Penny 40 situation. But we'll see, what will happen with that. Like, obviously, her and Julia kind of had their problems with how she handled the Reynard situation. But, eventually they kind of, I think, became best bitches again, I think. Their word, not mine. Maybe that won't cause any complications. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see in that regard. But I'm very interested to dive into like what this whole Julia situation means from now on. Then another side of things is the quickening. I brought it up at the beginning of the season. Like, I talked about that during the premiere. Like, I'd completely forgot about that storyline until I rewatched season 3. I was like, oh my God, I'd completely forgotten about it. And I brought it up, and it's like, lo and behold, here it is. So we kind of find out about it. Basically, it's something that happens like once every 30 years. Basically, the werewolf side of you kind of kicks in. You lose a little bit of control. Basically, you either have sex with someone, you kill someone, or you end up killing yourself. That's the only 3. I mean, it kind of fits very, because even Josh was like, yeah, it's a very effed up version of fuck, marry, kill. It's kind of like, and that's literally like the title of the Arrow. What the fuck am I saying? Episode. I don't know what the hell I just said. Nevertheless, it's interesting because Josh tried to get to the other lady beforehand, but it turns out, no, she'd already killed someone. And it's like, oh. And then it was like, that looked like legitimately when he went in there, that looked like a scene from the TV show Dexter. Like that body sliced up like that in the bed and stuff like that. It legitimately looked like something from Dexter. That was just crazy. I was actually kind of surprised too that Margot helped. And that's something, I might have talked about this in the past reviews with like season 2 and season 3. Margot has, I mean, to be fair, it was like her and Elliot changed so much. They were kind of like the cool, popular, like, once again, bad bitches, essentially, And it's like, oh no, like, they grew and changed so much. They became adults and, responsible, And it's like seeing Margot, like, look after Josh like that. Because for her, it's like, I'm going to look after you because it's like, I'm not about to, and she says that later on, it's like, I'm not going to lose another friend. I literally already lost Elliot. I can't do that. And it's like, it's so crazy because, like, you compare that to who Margot was at the beginning. Margot was she was very selfish. She only cared about herself, but, like, to see that she cares about other people like that. I mean, she is the High King for a reason, So, it's just kind of interesting how that all came together like that. They had to eat the Komodo dragon heart that came from Kanye's place, and Margot was like, I didn't think it'd be under circumstances like this that I meet Kanye. I also love that Josh was like, honestly, the Komodo dragon heart's not that bad. But what really kind of surprised me was the fact is that Margot was like, no, like, she chose to have sex with Josh so that he could pass it on and kind of survive the quickening and everything. Because he was willing to sacrifice himself. Because it's like, I like you, and I'm not going to like, no, because I don't want that to be like, you know, because he was trying to be, you know, respectful and protect her, but she's kind of like, no, I'm giving you consent, and it's okay. Like I said, she wants to save her friend. Like, I think in her mind, it's like, if I can at least do this, it doesn't make up for the fact that I couldn't save Elliot, but, you know, at least I saved someone, you know. So, but also he's like, you know, what does this mean? Is this going to be casual or something like that? And it's like, it's not. And I'm like, Margot and Josh, now that's interesting. I'm interested to see what that ends up becoming and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow. I mean, to be fair, it kind of fits, you know, like, I feel like, you know, Margot's kind of a party animal. Josh is kind of a party animal. I mean, to be fair, both of them, even in his own right in regards, Josh has grown up too. Not kind of like the party animal he is. I mean, I guess you can make the argument both in the context of the show and obviously out of the show, you know, he's grown as a character, not just a party animal that he was before. So, as obviously he's been through a lot, just like everyone else has. So that was definitely very interesting to see how that all kind of played out. And then also jump into the Alice situation. Now that was interesting. I would have never guessed. Like, I threw it out there. I was like, oh, maybe it's Penny 40. It's like, oh, maybe it was Santa that came back for her. I couldn't remember the time. Whether he left beforehand or, like, you know, whether we saw the scene of him on his sleigh and everything. Nevertheless, lo and behold, Christopher Plover did not see that coming. I was like, the last time we saw him was in season 1, right? I want to say, I forgot whatever happened to him, but it's like, holy crap. And basically, he wants Alice's help, but Alice is like, why would I help you? You're a child molester. And it's just kind of, even trying to make comparisons, being like, oh, haven't you ever done something bad? And she's like, yeah, I've never molested a child, but yes, I've done stuff I regret. But the fact is, and he's like, oh, but don't you deserve happiness? She's like, no, I don't. And I don't think you do either. He's like, well, I kind of don't care what you believe and think. And it's just like, it is interesting that she is it, and I think conceptually it's interesting because she went from Santa Claus to Plover, and I think that speaks volumes. Now I'm very interested to see what they end up doing about this. I mean, to be fair, and Alice kind of brings it up, it's like, if you're literally the monster that made the beast, you made Martin Chapman into the monster he became because of you, and it's all like, oh, look, I've had time to reflect on all that time he tortured me and stuff like that. It's like, I don't trust you. It's kind of like, oh, he wants to go to a different world, he can be happy and stuff like that. He's like, oh, but it's not like that with his child perversion and stuff like that. I was just like, no, I don't believe you. There's something there. Like, because even Alice has hesitations about believing him, but if it's about, you know, getting to her friends, the books in particular. I also thought it was kind of interesting, there's that spell that they're planning to cast to basically rewrite, like, basically you insert a premise and basically it writes a narrative for it to basically cover their tracks, so it replaces where they're really going in their books so that the library can't follow them. But what's interesting is Alice ends up discovering the fact is that Quentin dies at the end, a week from now, and I'm assuming it must have something to do with this monster. Like, Quentin must, like, at one point just finally snap, and he's just like, you know what, I have this opportunity, I'm gonna try and kill you. Tries to kill the monster, and it ends up killing him. Potentially, I don't know, we still don't know. I mean, to be fair, everyone else's books are enigmas too, because, like, Alice didn't read a lot of them. The only one she read was Quentin, which makes sense, you know, you care about him and everything. So I'm curious to find out, like, what that ends up being about. Also, like, what is going to happen with this whole Plover situation? Is Alice really just going to let him go scot-free to another world? Like, is she going to find some way to kind of, like, get what she needs, but kind of screw him over? I kind of feel like that might be the direction, but it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening in that regard. Also, like I said, the Margot and Josh situation, but also, like, Margot and Quentin about the whole Elliot situation, because that's hitting them hardest, you know, most of all. And so I'm curious, like, what are they going to do going forward? They think Elliot's dead, but we know he's not. So, and also, what about Penny and Julia? There's a lot of interesting things that have kind of developed, and I'm very interested to see where all this takes us going forward, especially with this thing continuing to hunt down other gods, which, once again, we've been introduced to a few, Persephone and Hades, interestingly enough. So, well, there's also, I forgot her name, I'm blanking on it. They showed her in the intro. She's the goddess that, Julia talked with last season when she was off doing her goddess thing in the season finale. So I'm curious, like, is she going, I mean, like, all gods have a target on her back now, which I guess technically includes Julia as well. That thing, that's interesting now that I'm sitting here thinking about it. That thing hasn't been around Julia. Have they purposely been trying to avoid putting that thing around her? I mean, she obviously wasn't a goddess long enough to be one of the ones that did something to him, but I think they still probably, I don't know if they purposely done that or not. I didn't even think about that until now. It's like, yeah, because when she showed up, was it last episode, it was already after the thing had already left, so that's definitely interesting. And there's still other elements we gotta wonder about too. There's a library situation. I might have brought this up too. I don't remember if I talked about this in one of the episodes. There's still the whole Victoria and Harriet situation. They're that trapped in that bridge mirror existence. Like whatever happened. I mean, I guess that's just considered them dead, but I feel like there's got to be more to that. Just the library in general, and then there's also the McAllisters, Irene and her family, like, what the hell's going on with that? You know, so. Also, once again, like, an element that's still there. It's like, we're referencing it, but what's going to happen with it is Margot's fairy eye. That might actually be the key to finding out that Elliot's still alive. Because remember, her eye reacted to that thing it pulled out of Bacchus last episode. So maybe if she learns how to control it, she might be able to see, wait, something's funky about this thing, like realizing that Elliot might be alive. That might be what that ultimately ends up being. But nevertheless, like I said, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this takes us going forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.